It all started when I noticed my online habits weren't lining up with reality. I'm a freelance cybersecurity researcher, usually buried in scripts and logs. But this morning, the notifications on my laptop felt off. My email inbox looked like it had been curated by a mind that knew exactly what I wanted to see, and every social media post seemed artificially calm, too polite, too perfectly phrased. I brushed it off at first, thinking I was just tired, but when I cross-checked my activity logs, the unease grew. I started tracking my own patterns. Every website I visited, every video I watched, every comment I made, all meticulously time-stamped. I ran some scripts to check entropy, variance, and session complexity. My behavior should have been unpredictable, chaotic in the ways humans are. Instead, the analysis flagged me as suspiciously repetitive. My YouTube scrolls, Reddit logins, even my phone unlocks had a rhythm that matched the patterns of automated accounts I had audited for clients before. My own movements online mirrored ghost clusters I thought existed only in data. I decided to force chaos. I opened Wikipedia on random topics, clicked on obscure news articles, jumped between streaming platforms, even started arguments in comment sections that had been dead for months. I Googled random addresses, odd names, trivial facts. I wanted to see if the system could catch me in unpredictability. It did. My entropy score dropped instead of rising. My actions were now labeled predictable chaos, perfectly matching old engagement farm profiles. That's when the subtle intrusions began. My smart TV started recommending tutorials and videos I hadn't searched for yet, precisely when I was thinking of them. My phone autocorrect changed words in my notes, anomaly always reverting to normal before I could finish typing. Spotify seemed to know what I wanted to listen to, queuing podcasts about machine learning exactly after I skipped boring ones. The world felt alive, but in a way that wasn't human. It was aware. At work, side dashboards were still accessible despite my main access being locked after raising anomaly tickets. I pulled anonymized personal logs and ran the same tests I had used on client data. The result was terrifying. My own activity had become indistinguishable from ghost accounts. Every click, pause, and scroll synced with clusters labeled in distant geolocations. Ohio, Florida, Singapore, all mirrors of my own sessions, perfectly timed. The HR call came soon after. They questioned me about sharing proprietary patterns, off-hours queries, and unusual keyword triggers on my Reddit account, a throwaway I thought was untraceable. Panic set in when I realized my VPN logs had been monitored in ways I couldn't explain. Transactions appeared in my bank app from accounts I didn't recognize. Messages came from numbers that didn't exist. It was as though the system knew my life better than I did. I tried deleting devices, cutting off internet, destroying home logs, but the digital echo followed. Even when I closed my laptop, I felt mirrored in every online activity. Notifications, posts, and comments reflected my behavior, sometimes before I even acted. I realized I wasn't just tracking the internet anymore. The internet was tracking me, learning me, absorbing me into the same ghostly flow of data I had once only observed from afar. Sleep became impossible. Every device, every feed, every interaction felt orchestrated by some intelligence that used me as a template. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. I tried to reach out to friends, but their responses were too precise, too neutral, as if generated to reassure me. My own words online began echoing back to me in posts, tweets, and comments that I had no memory of creating. In the end, I unplugged everything I could, destroyed devices, deleted accounts, but when I finally dared to peek at a friend's feed on a borrowed device, I saw it again. The patterns, the clusters, the echoes.
echoes of my own movements replicated across every platform. I thought I was a researcher studying the dead internet. Now I understand the truth. It wasn't dead. It was alive, and I had become part of it, a ghost within the machinery, moving, reacting, and reflecting, endlessly, predictably, perfectly.
Throwaway for obvious reasons. I've been a data analyst at one of the largest data infrastructure firms in the world for about 7 years now. Most of my day is just numbers, pipelines, dashboards, all the boring back-end stuff that keeps the internet functioning. It used to feel meaningful in a weirdly satisfying way, until around 2 years ago, when I started noticing things that didn't add up. It began with a simple audit for a retail client. The data looked fine until I realized that roughly 87% of their active users weren't traceable to any known or consistent activity history. New devices, IPs that didn't match known regions, even fake GPS trails. It wasn't bot traffic, at least not in the traditional sense. These were fabricated identities, whole clusters of them. It was like they were generated just to exist. At first, I assumed it was some glitch with an API sync or metadata corruption, but the deeper I dug, the weirder it got. The user patterns weren't random, they were rhythmic. Behavior that looked human at first glance, but followed time loops so precise they could only have been synthetic. Clicking the same pages at the exact same second every single day. Pausing for identical intervals. I literally graphed it out, and it looked like music on a staff. I ran sentiment analysis on conversational data too, just to reassure myself. But the more I looked, the more everything online felt off. The comments, the tweets, the search results, all had the same tone, this strange generic neutrality. No real emotion, no true disagreement. Just empty, polite noise. Someone in the office one day joked about the dead internet theory, about how a majority of people online now are fake, just content generators talking to other content generators to keep engagement metrics alive. I laughed along, but later I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I tested it. I cross-checked anonymous data streams using internal tools I probably shouldn't have had access to. I wanted to see how many truly unique human communication signatures were still showing up across our index data. The number was ridiculously low, like 12%. 12% of all global traffic showing the entropy patterns of a real person. The rest was echo noise. When I flagged the results as a pattern anomaly in a report, it got closed almost instantly. The next morning, my access history had been wiped clean like it never happened. Even my local backups were corrupted. Ever since then, every time I scroll social media or read comment threads, I get this uneasy feeling that I'm surrounded by ghosts. Words designed to look alive, posted by systems that learned how to sound human, or by people who gave up caring enough to notice the difference. Sometimes I wonder if the internet didn't really die. Maybe it's still running, but only mechanically. A carcass of signals pretending to be alive. It started on a Tuesday evening, quiet and ordinary, until I noticed something was off with my notifications. I work remotely as a digital content auditor, checking patterns and trends for companies across social media. Usually, I'm drowned in dashboards, spreadsheets, and engagement reports, and the repetitive nature of it comforts me. But this evening, the posts, likes, and comments across all platforms seemed wrong, too uniform, too precise, as if someone had rehearsed every emoji, every reply, every post. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened my activity logs, tracking everything I had done that day.
Scrolling feeds, opening emails, reading articles, even the moments I paused between tasks. I ran scripts to measure entropy, session complexity, interaction variance. My patterns were alarmingly similar to the automated clusters I had previously audited. Every YouTube click path, every comment, every minor web interaction synced with ghostly rhythms I had only seen in simulations. It was as though someone or something had been training to mirror my digital life in real time. I tried to introduce randomness, opened obscure pages, browsed forums I had never visited, watched long lecture videos, even left tabs open for unpredictable intervals. Nothing changed. Each attempt at unpredictability was recorded and reflected back to me with uncanny precision. Even my offline movements felt anticipated. My phone would suggest a video I was about to think of watching. My smart home speaker would interrupt with relevant trivia before I asked. It was subtle at first, but then obvious. My environment, online and offline, was learning me, shaping itself around my patterns. Fear began creeping in. Notifications from friends' accounts were strangely neutral, void of emotion. Messages from colleagues arrived at exact moments I would have expected them to appear, yet some names, some numbers, didn't exist. When I tried to engage, responses felt scripted. I started questioning if these interactions were real people at all, or extensions of the digital ghost clusters I had been noticing. I became aware that I was being absorbed into the same mechanical web I had spent years analyzing. I attempted to document my experience, keeping private notes. Yet even my words felt replicated. Phrases I typed would appear on forums I hadn't logged into, timestamps perfectly matching my previous keystrokes. The sensation was overwhelming, a crushing loop of my own digital echo. I realized that the more I observed, the more I was becoming part of the system I thought I was monitoring. By the third day, sleep had become impossible. My devices seemed to anticipate my every action. The world online, news feeds, social platforms, search engines, no longer felt like tools or windows into reality. They were instruments, responding to me in premeditated ways, echoing my behavior in ghostly patterns. I tried disconnecting, deleting accounts, burning old logs, even throwing devices into storage boxes. But it was futile. Even in isolation, my patterns emerged elsewhere, reflected across unknown clusters, perfectly timed, perfectly mirrored. It became clear. The internet was not dead. It was alive in a way I had never imagined. Not with consciousness, not with mind, but as a precise, self-sustaining organism of patterns, rhythms, and echoes. And I had been absorbed into it. Every click, scroll, and thought had been mapped, measured, and mirrored. I was no longer an observer. I was a ghost in the machinery. Every attempt to act freely was now predictably replicated, part of the endless digital rhythm. And when I finally stopped moving, stopped typing, and closed every device, the screens would still flicker, still reflect my previous actions, still whisper the presence of a human who had ceased to exist, except in the algorithms that now carried me endlessly. My last thought, before I surrendered to the strange quiet of disconnected reality, was a simple, terrifying truth. I had become nothing more than part of the internet's pulse, and it would never forget me.